Hey there, bass timers. It's Adam Borden. I'm the bass guitar instructor here at Bass Time Online, but also over at naturalmusicstore.com. The link for that site is in the description. You can go over and check out our bass instructional series that we have over there. New material being loaded all the time, just like this. And then also check us out on Instagram, Bass Time Online, and here on Lime. I like Lime, but not that much. And Bass Time Online here on YouTube. Okay? All right. So today, this is one of our videos that we're going to be doing, talking about tone, our tone tips. And the theme of the tone tips is, it's in your, today is hands. It's in your hands. You say, well, I've got small hands, I've got big hands, I've got lady hands, I've got man hands. I don't know about all your hands. Here's the thing, though. No matter what size hands you have, if you're young or old, your tone originates. Your tone identity comes mainly from your fantastic fingers. Okay? So we're going to talk about the two sets that we have today. All right? We're going to talk, first of all, about our right hand. If you're a right-handed player, your picking hand, that's your right hand. If you're a lefty, flip it. Okay? All right. So this is for our picking hand. Now, the right hand. Most of us, when we start playing, have a difficult time making good contact and good, smooth, even volumed notes consistently. Sometimes you'll have notes that are kind of, we're just basically trying to make sure we don't get buzzes and hitting the right notes, and it's just all this pressure and we don't really worry about it. But when we grow, we want to work on our tone. Okay? So tone from the picking hand. Let's talk about that. All right. So when I was younger, when I was like 8 years old, when I started playing bass in 1970, I picked with two fingers together. We had the old 69P bass, and it had these plastic coated strings. They weren't elixirs. It was more like telephone cable. I don't know where my pops got that, but they were like super duper heavy, stiff, disgusting strings. I love you, Dad, but those were awful strings. And so it was everything I could do to pull a note out of those strings. So I would use two fingers, and I would mount my thumb right there on the old pickup, and I was pulling hard because the strings were about that high off the neck, and it just took a lot to make that tone. So we're moving ahead. All right. Various ways that we can get good tone using our right hand. First of all, over time, you're going to develop calluses. I've got little calluses on these fingers right here from where I've played guitar and played bass for so long and so frequently. And that's not a bad thing. Occasionally they'll peel up and all. It's okay. If they get a little stiff or whatever, just put a little lotion there if you need to. Sand them off even if they get that rough, because it can affect your tone adversely. So how are we going to get good tone with our right hand? Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure that we use we might for effect, but we don't want to grab. We don't want to grab with the fingernail. We want to make sure that our fingernails are nice and trimmed, and we can use that for an effect, but not for a good, solid playing tone, okay? And we want to come across and roll across the strings. Beginner basics. But you would be surprised how many people that their first finger and second finger are drastically different and have different volumes. So your tone in your picking hand needs to be even and consistent. Same tone, no matter which one of those. Now, if you're really, really advanced and you're doing crazy flamenco solo stuff and you use all three of those fingers, make sure they've got good, consistent volume and tone between any of those fingers, okay? Now, what if we vary and we drift from this pickup position? Well, I know my friend, acquaintance through Instagram, Jacob Lowry. Shout out to Jacob Lowry, beast of a bass player. when he plays his vintage bluesman bass, he's playing up here between the pickup and where the neck joint is. He's playing up here a lot. Okay, he's not riding right over that pickup a lot. But it matters where we place that fingering. Now, Jocko, he played way back here most of the time over the back pickup. Tighter tone. Over the middle pickup, a little bit rounder. A little bit more round. Up over the fingerboard, even more round. Okay? So our placement of where we place our fingers has a lot to do with that tone. Okay? So, real quick. Just have your pressure has a lot to do with that tone, and also the angle. Scott Devine over there at the world's greatest bass instructional, Scott's Bass Lessons. Shout out to Scott. He tends to have more of a kind of an overhand look to his fretting, or his picking hand. Nothing wrong with that. Got great tone. But you have to develop good tone with your right hand. If you don't have consistency between your picking fingers, that's going to be a problem. Okay? And so then we want to make that volume and tone even across all strings. And if you have the ability to record yourself, you can do that type of exercise and see if there's volume variations. Work on that. Don't make a pickup, a compressor pedal or something like that, or a limiter have to control the dynamic of your bass. It can enhance it, but don't let it be your schoolmaster. Control your tone through your picking hand. Okay? All right, so that's right hand. Now, we can also look at doing things with our thumb, like Sting and a lot of other players. I mean, we got, I use my thumb from time to time, and if I'm using my thumb, it's kind of a country type thing, or maybe a blues walk. Now, what makes that part of the tone unique? Well, the position coming down like that, for me, and kind of that corner of my fingernail, has something to do with that tone. You can even do kind of a little back and forth sweeping. Now, what if I want a muted tone? Well, then I'm just going to lay the meat of my hand over, and I'm going to adjust that pressure accordingly. And that tone, I have it change the EQ setting. This is both pickups up, medium EQ. All that tone difference is from the pressure, the touch, and the placement of my hand, the picking hand. So the tone is in your picking hand. All right, so what about our fretting hand? Well, we've got two hands to work with here. Let's talk about our fretting hand. Okay, well, you say, well, all you got to do is hold down the note. So it's very simple. It's very simple. Yeah, I know it is. It's very simple. But your fretting hand can make a great deal of difference in your tone. How can that happen? Well, basically, we know that when we fret a note, C note here, second string, third fret, we want to make sure that we've got good placement right there on that fret. Too far back. Now, if we get it a little bit back there, you can still fret the note okay. you're going to get little zip. And that is something we need to eliminate and mature our playing. Keep that consistent. Now, I rock back and forth with my finger. I don't change, if I'm playing in this position, I don't always change my pointer finger from string to string. My finger is such that I can rock that knuckle back and forth and keep a good open tone. Now, how can this hand change the tone? Well, I'm going to keep my picking hand right over this front pickup on this Fender Jazz here. Both pickups wide open, medium EQ. How can my fretting hand change my tone? Here's how. We can either choose to do, just a regular fretted note with reasonable sustain, depending on the groove and the song and all that. It could be short notes, or it could be long notes. Now, instinctively nowadays, but early on it wasn't as instinctive, my free fingers are very important. On an old non-electric piano, an upright piano or a grand piano, you have the hammer strikes the note. But if you ever seen the workings of a piano, when you let a piano note off, there's a felt damper that comes down and stops the note when you lift the tone. It's just kind of one of those things. I don't know if this thing's on or not. If I'm hitting, I can hold that note and that little damper stays up. But when I let off, there's a little damper that comes down on a regular piano that stops that note. Well, that's what these fingers are for. Okay? That's what these fingers are for. So those fingers can let up and dampen to shorten a note, make a good clean note. So that has to do with your tone as well. Now, the other major tonal influence from your fretting hand comes from fretting hand muting. Now, I showed you in the right hand section how I can mute with my left hand, with my picking hand. But I'll be honest with you, when I'm getting a round, kind of upright tone for bluegrass or something that's kind of jazzy or just a ballad or something like that, I'm muting with my fretting hand. I am going to come up on the fingerboard to get my tone rounder, to make the vibration center of my picking, give it that more round, kind of blossoming tone where it wah, wah, wah. It's not just a ding, ding kind of note. It'll grow a little bit if done correctly. So this hand, I'm going to use these fingers as a very, very controlled damper to end that note quickly or over a period of time. And in fact, I may even keep them to such a light touch that when I pick it, it dampens the note and gives it kind of that thud. Now that takes practice to kind of work around if you're alternating. All right, so there's some ways of working around that technique. The main thing is figuring out and practicing how long you can create that sustain or still make it sound in tune, but just get that little thud, kind of what we call a ghost note. Okay, so that's some very, very basic little tips. It's nowhere near all the technical things that we could explore, but that's what we need to do at home in our practice time. We need to practice and explore what tonal differences we can make with our right hand and our left hand, fretting and picking hand. So I hope you've enjoyed this little tidbit of a lesson, and we'll look for you next time here, Bass Time Online. Now don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're on there. Hit the like button and the little bell icon if you want to see more content like this come to you automatically. Check us out on Instagram, Bass Time Online. All those links are in the description, and as well, naturalmusicstore.com. Thanks so much for joining us today. Until we meet again, you keep playing that bass.